Hi, my name is Paige Penn Jones, and I want to thank you for joining us on a discussion on how to plan a micro wedding. Um, a big thank you to Austin of Y&R Designs for allowing me to use his platform. In addition, for all of those attending, you will receive a guide on how to plan a micro wedding. So let's just jump in. I'm Paige Penn Jones, owner and principal planner of Penn Jones Events. A little bit about me. My first business venture was owning a bakery business named Lovin' from the Oven. This is where I saw the inner workings of events and the organization they lacked. And this is my area of specialty. So I was really excited to begin getting into events to help have a more organized day. I've been planning weddings and events for 10 years. It first started in 2011 when I helped plan a cousin's baby shower. Next, I helped plan my mom's wedding, and that's when I got the planning bug. I then moved on to planning events for my job, planning various galas, seminars, and parties, after which I got married. And that's when I really knew that I wanted to get into weddings. I went to school and received a BS in business management. I'm also a certified project manager, and I believe this training is key when planning weddings and events. It focuses on the three most critical elements of weddings, which are the budget, the time, and the scope, all while focusing on quality, risk management, and the resources. Last but not least, I own a graphic design business, Penco Designs, which allows me to tap in deeper to my creative side. My favorite projects include large signage, and recently I found a love for designing planners. Here you have some examples of some large signage that I've made. As you can see in the top left corner, there's a gold welcome. That is a keepsake, and those other two mirrors are rentals that we offer at Penn Jones Events. All complete planning clients, they get a $150 voucher towards a rental or a keepsake of their own. So let's jump into what is a micro wedding. Just like anything, it depends on who you ask. Here at Penn Jones Events, we define a micro wedding as a wedding with 50 or less guests that is planned within 3 months. So if you take those same 50 guests and spread it over a 12-month planning period, we then consider you a complete planning couple. 50 guests, 3 months. Most couples would say, we have a venue coordinator. We could do that on our own. Do we really need a wedding planner? And I can tell you from personal experience, yes. I personally didn't have a wedding planner, and I regretted it. I know now that it is something that is very integral into your day. And I did have a venue coordinator, but what I'm here to tell you is that venue coordinators are generally concerned about details that directly affect the venue. Wedding planners offer a more complete service, and at Penn Jones Events, we guide you throughout your entire planning journey. From engagement to ID, we're there with you every step of the way. For all of our planning collections, we offer day of timelines, a wedding planning workspace, as well as ceremony rehearsal management. And for those bigger packages such as micro wedding, complete planning, and your wedding weekend packages, we create and manage your total wedding, from the budget to speaking to the vendors, where the vendor liaisons, giving you that venue list, which includes vendors and venues that fit within your vision and budget. Instead of receiving a preferred vendor list, which you would get from a venue coordinator that doesn't take into account your personal wedding situation and budget, we make sure that we provide you with a list that takes all of those things into consideration. Next is schedule creation. We offer a detailed day of schedule. It accommodates everything from hair and makeup in the morning to the very last vendor leaving at breakdown at night. This ensures 16 hours of complete service to any collection that you book with us. In addition to, we make sure that we format all of your special requests into that schedule creation. Most venue coordinators are there just to confirm vendor start and end times, and they don't have that detailed schedule that wedding planners do. Next is your contract review. And this is where a lot of couples get hung up on because there are a lot of details and they're very easy to miss. At Penn Jones Events, we'll review your vendor agreements to ensure that what was agreed upon matches your vision, and we'll flag any changes or additions that are needed before the wedding day. For example, do you have enough photography hours to include those hotel getting ready shots all the way through cake cutting? Or are you going to miss some of that because you only booked a 6-hour package and you didn't remember? These are services that are very helpful that wedding planners offer that venue coordinators do not. Generally, unless it's someone that they have a relationship with, they're not going to go into detail. And most times those venue coordinators or venues will receive some type of compensation for that relationship. And the most important thing that I believe a wedding planner can offer you is that unique design. Every young lady dreams of that big day, and she doesn't want that day to look like anybody else's day. So say goodbye to average designs. Here we provide a design that is tailored to the vision of each couple. And if you don't have a vision, that's not anything to worry about. We'll work with you to create one that reflects your personality and your aesthetic. Venue coordinators, they're going to give you that cookie cutter, tell you how it's generally done. And we want to make sure that it is personal to you. So let's start planning your micro wedding. You first want to start with your timeline. Most people think it's a smaller wedding, it's going to take less effort, less time. We're essentially squeezing the 10 to 12 month timeline into 3 months. This may seem stressful to some, but for us, we're very capable. We have planned events and weddings as far as 2 months out. And personally, my wedding was planned within a 6-month time frame, all while juggling a move, new school, and a new job. So it can definitely be done. And it's something that we have experience here at Penn Jones Events with. So before you start, of course, you want to hire your planner. They're going to help you with everything. 12 weeks out, you're going to choose your venue. 8 weeks out, you're going to send those invites. 6 weeks, you want to hire your core vendor team. 4 weeks out, you want to start finalizing all those additional vendors you may need. Finalize the timeline, the design plan, as well as vendor details. Last but not least, or most importantly, the day of, you want to enjoy that wedding day. Outside of the timeline, next is the budget. This may be the single most important thing that you need to do at the beginning of your wedding planning journey. It's just because you're having a micro wedding doesn't make budget planning any less important. So when you're creating that budget, a service that is included with all of our wedding collections outside of wedding management, you want to create 2 lists. You're going to have a non-negotiables list. Those are elements that you must have need to include in your wedding. You're going to die if they're not included, like that beautiful floral arch or those gold and pearl chargers. Then you're going to have your negotiables list. These are elements that you would like to include, but you could live without. You're willing to alter your budget to meet the needs of your non-negotiables first, or if you have to, leave them out of the budget altogether. While creating that list, you want to factor in that some costs are fixed costs, which are not dependent on the size of the wedding, and some costs, which are variable costs, which are dependent on the size or the number of guests at your wedding. What I mean by this is that those fixed costs, they're not going to change whether you have 10 guests, 50 guests, or 250 guests. Some of those elements and vendors include photographers, videographers, venue, attire, rentals, DJ, and entertainment. Venues, they could alter in price because you could have a smaller portion of a venue, a smaller space, if you're having a smaller amount of guests who are going to be at your wedding. So maybe they have a separate room where you could save some money. However, if it's a venue that you are really wanting to have your wedding at, most times the cost isn't going to change. Your variable costs, which are dependent on the size of your wedding, those include catering, transportation, welcome bags and gifts, decor, and florals. If you have 10 tables, you're going to have less florals to put on the tables versus if you had 20 tables. The last item in variable costs is a wedding planner. And like I said, this depends, because if you plan your wedding within 3 months, like I said here, we will consider you a micro wedding collection client. However, if you want to spread that same 50 guest list, but spread it out over a longer period of time, even 5 months, 10 months out, you're then going to be considered a complete collection client. However, if you go elsewhere, that same 50 guests, regardless of the time frame, they may still consider you a micro wedding. So that is why wedding planners are under a variable cost. So how do you choose the right vendor for your big day? There are 6 categories that I suggest you take a good hard look at, write them down, memorize them, because these are the things that you're going to be basing your vendors on. First and foremost, pricing. Does that vendor fit in my budget? You would think that this is the most important item. However, I'm going to go to an item that I believe is the most important in just a moment. So you want to make sure they fit in your budget. You don't want to break the bank unless it's a non-negotiable. You don't want to break a bank for that vendor. Next are the service offerings. Does this vendor provide the services and have the policies and procedures that are aligned with what I need? That's what is most important. Alignment. Alignment is everything. Do we vibe? Do we have the same beliefs? Do we have the same ethics? Is this vendor ethical and have integrity? If you don't have the same beliefs as the vendor, if you don't believe in something that they're doing, they're not going to be a good fit for you. Next is the interview process. And this is generally when you find out if you're in alignment with a vendor or not. And this is the time to assess the vibe, ask for referrals, and understand the vendor's process. I can tell you, if the vendor doesn't know their process, they're not going to be of any big benefit to you on your big day. It's just going to cause a lot of confusion. You want to know what's included and what's not included in their offerings. During that interview, you want to ask about their hours of service, if they charge any after hours pricing, if they charge fees for travel and accommodation, delivery and setup. And for rentals and decor, there are some charges that many people aren't aware of, such as a delivery and convenience fee. For example, if you have stairs and they have to carry items up those stairs, you will be charged for that in addition to other delivery and setup fees. A Saturday delivery fee is also another fee that's generally added on top of that delivery and setup fee. If you don't have a setup day and breakup day prior and after to your Saturday event, you will be charged most likely a minimum of $250 for that setup on a Saturday. And last is order minimums. Most rental houses, they rent out items in sets of 5 or 10, and it's just easier for them because they can pre-pack, pre-wrap all of those items, and they know that you're going to get those 10 items that you need, whether it be plates, forks, chairs. They know that you're going to get the amount that's already in that set. So if you have 40 guests, you should be good. If you have 45 guests, most times you're going to have to order 50 chairs, 50 plates, and that's okay because you always want some extras laying around. Next are those reviews. You definitely want to do a deep dive looking at reviews amongst all of that vendor's platforms to make sure that you see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I definitely recommend looking outside of the website because a website is something that a vendor can control. Of course, we're going to put the best glowing review on our websites, but I would just say take a deep dive on social media, Google reviews, Facebooks, LinkedIn, Twitters. We all know that Twitter is where the dirt is. So if that vendor has a Twitter, I would make sure that I'm looking at the Twitter account. And last but not least, our relationships. Take a look at their social media again. See if that vendor interacts with the same vendors, because you want to remember birds of a feather flock together. If that vendor is working with someone who you deem to be unethical, then maybe they share some of the same practices and we just can't see it on their social media. Some pros of having a micro wedding. Couples get to enjoy a much more meaningful day. And what do I mean by this? You don't have to spread yourself thin over 250 guests when you only have 50 guests. You can greet, interact, and enjoy those 50 guests much more intimately than you could a wedding with 250 people. You're not going to be tired at the end of the night. Most brides regret not having even tasted a piece of their wedding cake because they were so busy doing meet and greets their entire wedding night. The possibilities are endless is pro number 2. You can do a lot more for 10 people than you can for 200 people. And this is all contingent upon your budget. If you have a $30,000 budget, you can make that $30,000 stretch way further with 10 to 20 guests than you could with 100 guests. You can have little details. You can have big details. That floral arch may not be out of reach now that you have 10 to 50 guests. Pro number 3 is that you have fewer options to consider. This meaning you don't have time to change your mind. If you're planning a wedding in 3 months, you have to make a decision, quick and fast. You don't have time to sit for 3 months and think, maybe I want this design to change. You lock in a decision and you're done with it. And I personally enjoy this factor of micro weddings because you get it over with. You're not harping over it. You're just getting it out of the way. Pro number 4 is that you get to enjoy love. 90 days of wedding planning. That's all you have from engagement to ideal. 90 days, and you get to spend the rest of your life with the love of your life. Last pro that I have is that you get to choose a micro wedding package. Now, I put this in the pro column because most times, like here at Penn Jones Events, we offer a separate micro wedding package where it includes all of the same offerings as our complete planning package, which is also known as a full service wedding package in some areas. You get everything that's included, but because you're not using up so much time, we actually charge less for it. So what are some myths about micro weddings? It takes less work to plan. Absolutely not true. Just like I give 150% to weddings that take place over a 10 to 12 month span, I'm gonna still put in that 150% for you, a micro wedding client. It literally doesn't matter. We still have to take all the same steps. We just don't have time to linger over the decisions. Myth number 2, that you have to leave out a large amount of family and friends. This is also not true. The thing about micro weddings, and like we've seen over the past year with COVID coming into effect, you could still have the wedding of your dreams and include everyone. While they may not be there physically, they could be there through Zoom, through other live streaming. And YRN Designs, they offer some of those services and they're great at them. You could send those guests a little care package with dinner, a gift, dessert, and you could make them feel like they're sitting right in that room with them, but they're in their pajamas. And I don't know about you, but I would love to start attending weddings in my pajamas. It beats buying a $150 dress and wearing those heels. A third myth is micro weddings are not traditional. I don't know about you, but I don't want any wedding to be traditional. Should you still have those traditions that your culture has? Absolutely, if that's the route you want to go. But when I say that it doesn't have to be traditional, I'm saying make your wedding day your own. It can be whatever you want. Serve cereal and pizza at your wedding if that's what you want. Go river rafting at your wedding if that's what you like. Whatever is true to you and your spouse, that's what you should do. By no means should your wedding feel traditional. Myth number 4 is that you're sacrificing your big day. That's not true either. You can do whatever you like. Like I just said, make your wedding your own. You're not sacrificing anything. If anything, you're gaining. You're gaining time with the people you love the most. You are gaining an experience that you'll never forget. Myth 5 is that savings is the goal. While this may be true for some couples, savings isn't always the goal with micro weddings. Sometimes you want to do more with the budget that you have. As I previously mentioned, spending $30,000, which is the average cost of a wedding, on 10 to 50 guests will stretch much further if you have 100 or 200 guests. And I can let you know now, $30,000 with 200 guests is not cutting it. So sometimes savings isn't the goal. Sometimes you want to create that extraordinary experience for those who are closest with you. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them and we will answer them. Have a great night.